Welcome everyone. Alright, thanks for joining us today. I really want to apologize for a delay. Now we're all set, so we can get started. My name is Oksana Skorommaya and I'm excited to share with you guys a lot of really helpful stuff today. But before we get started with our today's topic, just let me know for sure that you're hearing me well. I'd appreciate if you could just type something in the chat area to let me know that my volume is coming through. Okay, thank you for your feedback. Seems like we're doing just fine in terms of technical issues right now. Okay, good. So and now some housekeeping items. So this webinar is scheduled for 1 hour and a half duration, including Q&A. For those who want to revisit the topic, pass that on to colleagues. Perhaps you'll find the recording of this webinar on ITVDN YouTube channel. Well, I expect this webinar to be highly interactive and participative today. It's not just me talking all the time today. I really encourage you to participate throughout the presentation. Go ahead, type in any questions you have. Also, during today's webinar, you have a chance to win 25% off for our Agile English course. Make sure you meet all the requirements. So you have to like both our Facebook page and the post announcing this webinar. And please leave the comment with your number under the post to make sure you'll be able to participate in the draw, okay? So first off, let me introduce myself briefly so you know what my background is, what my experience is. This will help you understand why I'm doing this webinar, what I might be useful for, what kind of questions better to ask based on that information. And while I'll be introducing myself, I want you to share some information about yourselves, okay? I'd be really interested to hear something like, what is your role in the company you work for? It would be great if you could also let me know what kind of company you're working for. Is there a product or outsourcing company? Is there a startup perhaps, e-commerce company, whatever, right? So your answer might sound something like programmer in a startup, okay? So, and just a little about myself and why I'm doing this webinar. Currently, I'm the owner and teacher at Career English School based in Kiev. It's, so to speak, an IT-oriented school of English. And now I'm going to tell you what stands behind the idea. I've got a degree on foreign languages. I'm fluent in English and have a good command of German. Know basics of Spanish and Polish. And yeah, I really enjoy keeping on studying languages. Also, I've got a master's degree on banking. And one thing that I would say that defines me is that I love to learn. I get excited about new things. I constantly try to learn something new. So I've taken multiple courses from Coursera platform. I'm sure almost all of you have heard of that. The latest was on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And to be honest, I sign up for more online courses than I can actually finish. I don't know if you guys have the same problem, just let me know here in the chat area. I believe I could be really helpful, especially for IT folks in terms of English, as I've had an IT-related experience myself. I used to be a co-founder and CEO of a small technological startup company 2 years ago. It was a product company. We developed a cloud-based analytical platform for sales and supply chain management. Okay, The platform was meant for B2B customers, though we expected it to evolve into B2B2C marketplace at some point of time. We also had the potential of entering international markets. Unfortunately, it was not to be. And I've been part of that project for 2 years. To be honest, the project turned to be extraordinarily challenging and mentally draining to me. Not that I expected it to be easy or something. It was really hard work, day in and day out. It has also been the most overwhelming and remarkable challenge I have ever taken on. I got to know really a lot of valuable stuff. I got to know cool people who joined our team. Some of them are now taking courses at my English school. So I feel that I've got a lot to share. And when I had to choose where to move next after I left the company, I started considering a few things. I realized that for IT folks, English is a serious issue. And it occurred to me that I've got everything to really help them with that. So that is basically how Career English School was born. Actually, we have different types of courses starting from general English, we're doing business English, but the most popular courses are IT-related courses. These are the tailor-made programs I've developed myself based on my experience. I came up with a special naming for that, Agile English. What really drives me is being able to watch people get better with their English, get better job opportunities. And I'd like to give a shout out to some of my students who helped me with the preparation for this webinar. They gave me their ideas on what would be interesting for them to hear, what is the most challenging thing they experience working as programmers, QAs in different IT companies. I know that you guys are listening. And the topic of today's webinar turned to be, by high margin, the hottest one for all of them. Okay, and now let me check your feedback. Okay, so here we have project managers, head of IT department. Hi, Bogdan. I am not a programmer. Beer company as economist. Thank you. Sorry guys that you have trouble understanding my English or English in general. С переводом на мандаринский. Sorry, I cannot help you with that. Okay, let's go on. So that was basically it with about myself part, and I'm just going to give you an overview of what we'll look at today. So today we are talking about surviving meetings with foreign customers. And I mean your existing or potential customers, namely those who want you to develop something for them. Though not everyone here is working for outsourcing companies, as we can see from our feedback, but anyway, you'll be able to apply these language survival tips in other situations, that is for sure. Okay, so I'm not going to tackle such questions as how to find a customer, how to deal with closing agreements with them, right? So that's not what we are going to talk about today. Some of the topics you've suggested in the registration form might be in the scope of future webinars, right? Not today. So I'm gonna walk you through a bunch of questions. The first one will be small talk or breaking the ice. We'll look at how to report your progress. We're gonna look at how to speak on your upcoming tasks. We'll talk about how to react if you're struggling to understand what your customer is talking about. I'll give you some tips on how to ask questions and ask for clarification. We'll look into some ways how to explain the problem. I'm gonna give you some tips on what to do if the amount of information gets overwhelming. And finally, we'll talk about how to end up with clear understanding of all the tasks and issues after meeting. And I hope that everyone will come out and ask me really awesome questions. I will definitely share everything I know, and again, I encourage you to participate throughout the presentation, right? So enter your questions into the chat area. I'll get them, sort them, and hopefully answer all of them. And if you have any further questions that don't get answered today, right, you can catch me on Facebook, and I'll do my best to answer the questions related to the topic of today's webinar, or perhaps any other questions, right? So that's how I see it should be going. Okay, so now we can start on the core part of what we're doing today, right? So first off, I'd like to speak about small talk, or in other words, breaking the ice. I'm pretty sure almost all of you know that small talk is a casual form of conversation that breaks the ice or fills an awkward silence between people. Even though you may feel shy because of your level of English or just because you're not good at the so-called social English, it is sometimes considered rude to say nothing. In an English-speaking environment, it is often better to make a few mistakes than to say nothing at all, right? Okay, so what are the best benefits? First, sparking up a small talk, you'll break an uncomfortable silence, right? Secondly, it'll help you to fill in the time while you're waiting for the rest of your colleagues to join the meeting. You'll make a positive impression, which is really important, isn't it? But the most important benefit, in my opinion, is that it'll help you to set friendly relations with your customers. And believe me, one day it'll help you if you screw something up, right? I always say that a personal relationship is that what counts at the end of the day. Yeah, and well, it helps build deeper relationship down the road, right? So now let's interact a little bit. When it comes to a small talk, there are some safe topics and some topics which are not really good choice. What do you think are the safe bets, so to speak? Please give me your answers in the chat area, and then I'll give you my suggestions. Okay, any ideas on safe topics for a small talk? I'll wait for your feedback and then go on with my suggestions, right? Okay, no comments so far. Then I'll give you my suggestions. So here are my suggestions of the best and the worst topics for a small talk. Okay, so we've got some inputs, weather and politics, but is that a good choice or is that bad choice? Okay, so anyway, we've got my suggestions here. So weather is a safe, common subject, especially when it has been significant, very hot, cold, wet, etc. So it's definitely a good opener. And if you know that someone has been on holiday, got married, had a baby, etc., it's okay to ask about this, right? So, but keep it general and short and be sensitive to the others in the group, right? And yeah, travel talk is great. Current news, you can discuss that, sports, headlines. Okay, let's go to the worst topics for small talk. I definitely don't recommend to discuss the following. That is your health or diet habits, the cost of things. Try to avoid mean gossip, off-color jokes, some controversial issues such as politics or religion, right? And yeah, you may even feel like this about small talk, but I really mean that you should try to engage your customers into small talks. If you show true interest, you'll set a positive tone for future interactions, right? So, small talks does not necessarily have to be painful. By learning a few simple techniques, you can polish your social English. And I'm absolutely sure that small talk is a little thing that makes a big difference. And here I'll give you some hand-picked examples of conversation starters so that you feel more comfortable when it comes to a small talk. And here's a good way to spark up a conversation with a greeting, right? So it's in a form of a dialogue, so that even if it wasn't you who initiated the small talk, you know how to respond and keep up the conversation going, okay? So like I said, weather is absolutely a safe bet, and thank you for your inputs. Okay, I see that a couple of you suggested weather, I suppose, as good choice for small talk. So speaking about weather and distributed teams, you may also ask participants to do something simple and visual, like taking a picture of what they see out the window. It may be a great fun and add some personal touch. Yeah, just try that during some of your meetings. Okay. You can definitely complain about an unpredictable weather. It's something we constantly suffer from, right? And I'm sure that the other person has something to say about that. So the script might be the following. You can see it here on the screen. So just say something that the weather is so uncertain here at whatever place it is that you are. So it's definitely impossible to know what will happen, and the other person is going to definitely agree, and you can elaborate on the topic. Okay, let me check your feedback again. So I disagree that health is a bad topic. If you know that someone had been a bit sick, it would be polite to know if the illness is gone. Yeah, I would say that it is definitely polite to inquire about person's health if you know that the person was absent for some time because of his health issues. It is definitely okay to ask about that and polite. When I wrote health issues, perhaps well, not every disease or not every illness you would discuss with your colleague or with your customer, right? Okay, so what if the client feels that I just spending his time with this small talk? I would definitely disagree with that, because normally foreigners, it's just obvious for them that a conversation should start with something like a small talk. They don't normally get down to business, get straight to business, right? Okay, so what about jokes? Yeah, of course, if you're good at telling jokes that are really funny, why not? Especially not everyone is good at that in his mother language. But if you're good at that in English, why not? It's definitely good. Okay? So let's move on. Again, like I said, if you know that weekend plans is another great topic to discuss. It's definitely a safe bet. You may ask a person what he or she is up to, and based on the answer, you can elaborate on that. It might be really a great topic for conversation, right? So here I gave you the script, how that dialogue might sound. And again, if you know that someone has been on holiday, got married, had a baby, etc., it's okay to ask them. Here is a suggestion of how to do it if a person had a vacation, right? So vacation might be a good one or a great one, and the vacation might not be a really good one. So that is two different scripts how to run that conversation, okay? And here I've came up with some additional safe and evergreen topics to strike up a conversation. You might ask something like, how long have you worked as a project manager or whatever role your customer has? It's good to ask where the person, where your customer or colleague, whoever is based. Basically, that is, you're asking about the place where he or she works at the moment. You may ask something about the country that person lives in. You may ask about the climate, what places to visit. It's good to ask about sports in that person's free time, and some other conversation starters I've provided here in this slide. Okay, great. You rocked your small talk, you had fun, your customer is in good mood, everybody joined the meeting, and you're ready to get down to business. Well, if your project is underway, normally the customer is interested in updates. Well, it depends on the project, right? You may have daily stand-ups, weekly status meetings, or the schedule might be organized in a different way, right? For the customer side, there might be a technical person assigned to attend such meetings, or there might be some less tech-savvy person. So the first thing you should be able to do is to report properly, right? That is updating your customer about what's happening, right? So normally the process looks like this. You are going to cover your progress on commitments. How did you and your team do on the plans you committed to last time, right? You are going to cover some unexpected events, perhaps. That is, you've got to answer the question, what came up that you didn't anticipate, right? You are going to talk about plans, what are you and your team working on next, right? And you've got to cover some problems, if any. Where are you blocked and where do you need help, right? So let's go over these points one by one. The first one is reporting the progress. Here I've got the phrases you might use to describe that. You may say something like, yesterday I was working on, I spent a little time on, yesterday I was doing, well, whatever you were doing, testing, looking into, perhaps you finalized something, and it will be good to let your customer know about that. If you don't have anything to report, feel free to say the following phrase, like, actually I don't have anything to report, except I was helping somebody or I was figuring something out, right? If you have something done, you might use the following phrases like, I have already finished with this feature, or I have already done the task, feel free to assign a new task to me, today I finished, and something like that. So all these phrases are useful when you're describing things you have done since you last met your customer or your colleague, right? So when speaking about things you're going to get done today, you might say something like, I'll be doing the same sort of things today, or I'll probably just carry on with that today. These phrases might be useful if you don't have any new tasks and you are going to continue working on those tasks that you have already, right, in process. I'm gonna shoot for, or this will be assigned to me. These phrases might be useful if you are going to take some new task, right? And some other examples. So I started working on upgrade, but I'm afraid it's gonna take much more time than we thought, because it's a very risky area and every code change requires a lot of testing. So that is an example when you have to keep working on the task because of some impediments, because of some obstacles, right? Okay, and let's move to roadblocks. And one more question we have in the chat. Yes, the recording of this webinar will be available on this YouTube channel, ITVDN YouTube channel, right? Okay. So, well, roadblocks. It's really important to get this point across so that your customer is aware of any problems that you're currently facing, right? You have to meet the expectations of your customer. It's definitely good to let the customer know that you've got some impediments or dependencies. They might be called roadblocks, right? So you might say something like, if you don't have any impediments, so it's going very well actually, nothing blocking, or there might be some issues that you have to raise to somebody, that is, you need somebody to help you with some issues. Well, if you have some minor issues, you might say something like, basically we had some minor issues, or the only impediment is that the design is a bit more complex. That is an example of an impediment you might have, right? So we had some issues with this and that, all that stuff, right? So it really blocks me. That is when something is really critical and you cannot move without handling that issue, right? Okay, so I'll raise this issue and see if we can get any assistance. That is, you might use that when you need just someone else to participate in handling that issue, right? And I think we need to do some adjustments. That is, yeah, when you have some minor issues, nothing blocking, but you just need some adjustments, right? Okay, that is clear now. And now I want you to imagine the situation when you start struggling understanding what your customer is speaking about. Just let me know if you have ever had such situations in your experience when you were struggling to understand, to figure out what the other person is saying, right? So let's face it, the situation is quite real, right? This may happen mostly due to two reasons, as I see it. So the first one is because you have some trouble understanding his or her English, right? And the second reason is that you basically lost the point and don't really understand what the customer wants from you, right? Okay. So you may understandably become nervous when you're having trouble grasping what people are saying. Your nervousness can cause you to stumble more in your communication. You might miss important messages and come across as less than professional, right? So what I recommend is that if you can't understand someone, simply apologize and ask them to repeat. If that doesn't work, ask questions to gain clues, like, could you please spell that for me? Something like that, right? So if English is the problem here, the script might go like this. So my favorite is, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat that? Okay. And similar phrases. Could you say it again, please? Could you rephrase that so that the person or the customer has a chance to say in different words, to rephrase the sentence, the question, so that you might understand, right? Yeah, and it's absolutely okay if you might ask to spell something, right? If you cannot get the point of what is being said, right? you might use the following phrases, the following sorry guys for my accent, that is the way it is, right? Everyone has his own accent. Even Americans, when they go to Britain, they have some hard times understanding the Brits, right? The British. So if you just have trouble understanding me, sorry for that, but I cannot possibly change it. Okay, so let's go to some questions that you might ask if you cannot get the point of what is being said. That is, there is no problem with English, you just cannot get it, right? So what do you mean by that? Could you illustrate? So you're giving a customer, just come up with some examples, or just describe what he or she, how he or she sees it, right? So can you explain your ideas more, or can you clarify that? Again, one of my favorite is, I'm afraid I don't feel clear about the main issue here, or I don't quite follow you, what exactly do you mean? Yeah, that is good. And one more useful phrase here, I'm afraid I don't quite understand what you're getting at. And could you please explain to me how that is going to work? So these are really useful phrases. They might help you out when you have some trouble understanding what the person is saying, right? Okay, so another real-life situation is when you're beginning to feel that the amount of information gets overwhelming. Obviously, you don't want to just make a best guess at what the customer wants you to do. You've got to sort it out somehow, and here are my suggestions. Just don't be afraid to ask your customer to enter a ticket and specify all details in there. If you're using some tools like Jira or whatever tool it might be, right? So you might ask for acceptance criteria for the given task, and even you might ask to drop a line with some clear specifications of the task, so that you know exactly what to do and you just don't have to guess, right? So it might be really useful, just don't be afraid to do that. And the next item of our agenda is explaining the problem or getting your point across. Well, what I always say is that there is a big difference between knowing something and being able to explain it to someone. It's quite challenging to explain a complex software to customers who may not have a technical background, right? You know, both parties involved may get really frustrated. I mean, your customer might seem frustrated and you are frustrated if you cannot explain the problem, if you have a hard time getting your point across, right? That's why it's really important to get it right every time. So I've come up with some tips that might be useful when talking technical with someone who may not have the same technical background and skill set. And I'm really curious about your tips. If you're a technical fellow and if you have your own tips and tricks, I'd like you to share here in the chat area, just to let me know what do you guys use, right? Okay, so it can be a big deal when you've got to communicate with non-technical customers. Of course, if you're a technical fellow yourself, so what might help you is that you, when you talk about people and actions, but not systems and code. Well, for example, if you need to describe the process to make happen something, describe the result that user sees, but not the process itself, right? Another tip here is visual aids. I really do encourage you to use whiteboards, right? And if you have, if you're working with someone remotely, there are many sketch or whiteboard tools available, right? Okay, so speaking about analogies, to be honest, I'm not really good at analogies, but if it works for you, it might be really helpful. Take whatever the topic is and think of something completely non-technical that they would understand and explain it to them that way, right? So again, and the question about jargon, if you're really a technical fellow, you might sometimes overuse some technical words, right? And your customer might not have the same skill set or might not be that technically savvy as you are. That is why I'll give you here the example, like how you might turn your phrases into something that is more understandable to your customer. Like, term the database isn't properly load balancing when hit by multiple requests from an IP subnet. So you might turn that into something that might sound like the database is having trouble handling requests from certain people, right? That is like more understandable for people who is not that technically savvy. Yeah, and if you have to explain database, you might be in trouble. So I used to use place to store stuff, so that might work, right? Okay, and let's move on to the next question. It's about how to end up with clear understanding at the end of the meeting, right? During your interaction with the customer, you'll have to ask questions or ask for clarification of any kind. This is really important because if you don't do it, you'll end up without clear understanding of your tasks, of other issues, whatever you're doing there. And here are some ways how to do that, how to be better at that, right? So any script that you use for asking will come in here, and it might go like this. So I really recommend you, I highly recommend you to rephrase everything that is being said during the meeting in your own words, so that you make sure that your customer really understands you. So he or she has to confirm that what you're saying, that what you're rephrasing is right. So here are some suggestions. So that what you're saying is that. So, and then you repeat what they said to get confirmation, right? So definitely wait until the client confirms that what you've just said is correct. Then, correct me if I'm wrong, please. You're saying this and that. And then reiterate what they said, right? So you did say, and then didn't you, right? So, and repeat what the client said, again, in your own words. Another phrase here, so if I understand you correctly, I have to do this and that. And then again, the same pattern, you repeat everything in your own words. Another suggestion here is, before we close the meeting, I'd like to briefly summarize the main points and then go with the same pattern. Why don't we summarize what we've agreed on today? So it's a good idea to do at the end of every single meeting, right? Just to review, I'm going to handle this and that, and then whatever it is you do, right? And now that I'm digging into this and that. And again, wait until the confirmation and you'll be just fine. Everyone will be satisfied with the outcome of the meeting, and everyone will understand everything explicitly without any ambiguity, right? Okay, here we've got some questions. Stas is writing, but this is a huge problem. Let's say we have done some web application and client asks to change color for buttons, delete some column from the table, or change user's request from, and I don't quite get what is the problem, that the client wants to change something. I guess that's he's entitled to do if he's paying for that, right? And okay, the continuation is here, and I need to explain why it will take few days to develop and some dollars for that, and client thinks that I'm trying to lie or just to lure out the money. Yeah, of course, there might be such a situation, and that is why what my suggestion is that you have definitely explain to the best of your ability. Well, again, it depends if the client is a technical fellow or a non-technical fellow. If a guy is a technical fellow, it's easy, right? Normally he is going to understand you. And if he is not really technical, that might be a problem, and irrespective of your level of English. If he is just thinking that you're trying to lure out the money, right? I basically cannot help you with that right now, and cannot tell you how you might persuade that customer, right? It depends on a person, right? Okay. Fine. So, and now I've got an announcement for you that is from our Career English School. We are going to launch some new groups for Agile English course. So if you want to improve your IT English, just sign up for our offline course here in Kiev at Career English School. So please go to our website and you might register there. So the start is planned on the 27th of June. The lessons are 2 times per week with 1 hour and a half duration, and the course is scheduled for 3 months duration, right? So here you see some details, and I guess that in 10 or in 15 minutes we are going to find out who is going to get 25% off for this course. So check, I've announced the requirements. You have to go to our Facebook page at Career English and just check out the requirements. You've got to like our Facebook page, our post, and to leave a comment, right? And again, one more announcement. I had a question how to get better at speaking, how to get better at verbal communication, right? So I believe we can get better at communicating in English by actually communicating, right? So let's get started right away with that communication. We have a really unique IT English club. Dennis is a native English speaker from San Francisco. He is a business owner and IT enthusiast. He's going to lead the meeting. We have already had one meeting, our first IT English Club meeting. The next is scheduled for the 24th of June. You might go to our website and register there. Or simply call us and get any details you want and register for that event. You will definitely not be disappointed, right? So, and now we have a Q&A session. And for that, I've got a couple of questions that you provided in the registration form. And for that, some of them were I cannot answer, I cannot possibly answer some of them, right? And now I'm going to explain you why. So here I have a question, right? Any question. So what is the best car to buy? And the answer might be like, it might sound like, I like the new Toyota Camry, check it out. So, and the question here, was that a good question and was that a good answer? Just let me know if you liked the question and let me know if the answer was okay, right? So how do you think? What's wrong with that, with the question and with the answer? And what I think on the question and the answer. So what does the best mean anyway? Is that best price? Is that best gas mileage? Is that best for a family of 5? Best for hauling dirt? Best for driving on unpaved surfaces? Best for driving in the snow? Or is that lowest maintenance costs? Is that rated the best in terms of reliability? Well, most variety of colors, or is that best financing deal? Yeah, obviously the person is asking what is the best for me, which is implied, but who is that person anyway? How much does he have to spend? What features are important to him or her? Does he or she want to make monthly payments, right? Whatever. So if we don't have that information, then if you don't have that information, right, you force people to fill in the blanks with their own assumptions, right? So, and inevitably, your assumptions will never meet with their end. In some cases, it may miss the mark completely, right? So that is the problem here. Well, that means, yeah, providing specifics unless you're looking for every possible answer under the sun, right? So if you want a good answer, just ask a good question, right? So, okay, so I've got a couple of questions that I really want to answer, and the first one was related. There were a couple of questions even related to the topic of how to get better at English, how to get better at verbal communication, well, how to start learning English, right? So and I would like just to give you my learning approach. I won't give you just some general tips and tricks. I just give you my learning approach. That is how I do it, and perhaps that might help you. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you've got to figure out your own style, right? So, and my approach is that if I learn a language, I really go for it. And it means basically that just taking some online courses or offline courses or whatever courses is not enough. Watching videos or listening to podcasts alone is not enough. You've got to surround yourself with English. You have to seek out movies, podcasts, radio, music, and listen. But at the same time, you should get more out of listening and watching. And how I do that, I try to end up with a couple of new phrases or a couple of new words after watching almost every video, right? I just try to figure out what interesting was being said that I don't know, and I have, well, a small note, it might be digital or whatever, where you might put down these new words and then just go over your list and just expand your vocabulary, right? And what else? I absolutely love forums. right? And I think that contributing to the discussions might really help you in terms of your English, right? So my choice of forums, that is Quora, Software Engineering Stack Exchange. You may go there and you may browse for interesting topics that might be of interest to you, and you even might contribute to the topics, or even you might start your own topics if you have some question that is bothering you that you really want to discuss with someone, right? Another tip here is get to know people online who share similar opinions. And what I want to say that I really love tennis, not playing tennis, but watching tennis. And I follow different famous personalities in tennis, and I also browse different forums related to that, and I got to know a lot of people who share similar opinions, similar likes as mine, right? And we even tried to have like online live communication via Skype or whatever tool it might be, or Viber, Facebook, whatever, right? So there are a lot of online platforms out there on the web that you might go and find a partner to practice your communication skills, but most often they are you have to pay for that. And if you connect with someone like this, you don't have to pay for that. You have natural topics for conversation. These are based on your interests, right? So that is a good choice. Again, what works best for me is following interesting Facebook pages. Here I give you my choice. That doesn't mean that you like that, but that works best for me, like, right? So I like following Business Insider, Tech Insider. Grammarly is just great. They are producing great content, right? In terms of pronunciation, British English, you might follow something like Cork English Teacher. I absolutely love, I'm not really sure how you should pronounce that, 9GAG or GAG perhaps, right? They produce just adorable content. I laugh a lot when I read their posts, right? That's just amazing. BuzzFeed is really funny, and Entrepreneur and Independent. These are my favorite Facebook pages that I regularly follow, right? So another tip here is to follow famous personalities on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Just let me know in the comment area what is your choice. Whom do you follow on Facebook or whatever social media it is, right? Might be interesting for me. Again, YouTube is a great social media channels like Ted, Big Thing, Atlassian, Simple Programmer, Jimmy Fallon shows. I'm definitely sure that you know that. Tech Quickie, they are really interesting, and I really recommend you to follow these, right? Quora, okay, good. Thank you for your feedback. Taking online courses, like I said, so my choice is Coursera, but you might choose something else. Whatever works best for you, whatever provides the most valuable information for you. Everything might work here, right? So the courses are in English so that you get to know a lot of information and you improve your English at the same time. And of course, taking offline courses, right? So everything just combined works together just perfect, because if you're just doing one thing, that just you won't make it, right? If you're really interested in going for your English. Again, some of you asked me about tips for effective collaboration with customers. Actually, the question sounded like, what are the main mistakes? But as I said before, the question, I didn't quite understand the question because I lacked some information to come up with a good and useful answer, and I decided to rephrase that question and give you some tips for effective collaboration with customers, right? So if you want to understand business logic requirements, you have to learn something about business that is clear. If you don't know about the business that a client is doing, it will be really hard to come up with something valuable for the client, right? Again, another tip here is use positive instead of negative statements, right? The client really isn't interested in what you cannot do, but the client is really interested in what you can do. And that is why I really recommend you to use positive statements, right? So try to come up with something positive that you can do for the client, right? Another tip here is to keep your customers informed. That is really important, right? Again, one more tip is here, be careful about interrupting your customers. It might seem obvious, but there are some people who try to interrupt the customers, who try to interrupt the clients and start offering their solutions. So please don't do that. Just listen everything that your client or your customer has to tell you, has to say, right? And then just start offering your solutions, right? Again, one more tip is listen actively. Have you ever seen a person that seems like a wall, that looks like a wall when you're speaking to her or to him, right? And you just cannot understand if that person understands you or not. He or she is not showing any sign of any reaction, right? It's really difficult to communicate with such people. That is why I recommend you to nod or to say something like I see, so whatever, right? Just to give some signs that you understand, you're listening, right? Again, so if you use acronyms, be sure that you identify what the acronym means, right? Even in IT sphere, they might stand for different things, different stuff, right? So be careful with that. Again, do your best to figure out how to properly communicate your concerns. And what I mean by saying that is that perhaps you're unsure about something, right? But you just feel you just cannot figure out how to tell that to your customer. Perhaps you feel shy or whatever, and you decide not to provide your arguments, or perhaps, I don't know, and just decide to wait until what happens. But that might end up with a really critical situation. And I highly recommend you just to prevent such situations and to express your concerns about the budget, about the deadlines, about any impending roadblocks that you might foresee, whatever, right? Just do that right at once when you notice them, right? Again, back to the questions. I suggest that you make them focused, narrow, and specific, right? It will definitely help you in communicating with your customers. Again, think carefully about edge cases, right? Sometimes your customer might not think about all of them, but as I see it, that it is your task, right, to get the business to think about such cases too. And again, it might be your concern, so you should communicate that properly, right? And one more thing, just don't try to solve problems in the meeting if you have like something like stand-ups, right? So just instead, when problems comes up, just enter some ticket or an action item, and to make sure that someone is assigned to work on the problem and after the meeting, right? So normally, yeah, it depends on the project, it depends on the team, but normally they just don't solve problems in the meetings, right? So that is like the tip here. Again, I had a question about customers from the US and from the UK. What is the difference? And any ideas about from you guys? Have you noticed any difference? Have you had any experience communicating with the different customers from the US and from the UK? So if you noticed any difference. And here I've provided some like general stuff that is known to like everyone, right? But if you have like personal communication and if you know something special, just share with us here in the chat area, right? So from what I know, in the UK, people are like more engaged in world news and other global concerns, right? So they like to discuss that during their small talks. So that is again a tip for you, what to discuss during your small talk, right? And Americans, they tend to be more focused on the situation at home. They really like celebrity gossip and they really like sports news, and it's okay to ask them about their kids sometimes, of course not at your first encounter, right? Yeah, so Americans really like to discuss their families, and British, they seem like more reserved, right? So here I've got a comment from you. So British customers have better sense of humor. Yeah, perhaps, but I've met a couple of Americans that who were really good at making jokes and all that stuff. Yeah, but perhaps. So, and that was basically all for today. So I want to thank you for joining. And if you have any comments or suggestions for future webinars, perhaps feel free to let me know in the comments. And right now we are going to find out if we have any likes for our Facebook page, and if anyone is interested in getting their discount for our English course. Just wait a bit. Now we are going to check our Facebook page, right? Okay, let me see. Okay, we have we have how many? 4, 5. Yeah, why 5? This is the Career English School. That is why we have only 4 of them, right? let's check the comments here. Okay. Okay, so I guess that we can congratulate Miroslava Marchuk, right? But we were meant, basically we don't have like a lot of comments here. We were meant to have 3 winners, right? Okay, let's check. We have to go to this random number one more time, I guess. And again, so number 1, but it seems to me that was not exact. Sorry, it's yeah, Miroslava, congratulations, you've got your discount. Okay, so it seems to me that we are getting more likes here. Oh, what's that? Okay, so let's generate one more time, right? So that is number 5, and who's number 5? We have only 4 here. Something seems to be wrong. Guys, you have to meet all the requirements. You don't have only to like the comment, but you have to post your number so that we know that you're number 5. It seems to me that someone liked the post, but he didn't post any comment here. That might be the problem, right? So who is Alexei Pevanosov? It might be that Alexei got his discount, so that we are congratulating you. And one more winner we need. Okay, and that is number 2, and who is that, I wonder? Okay, I guess that number 2 is Vitalik Samolenko, right? So we can congratulate you guys. We'll get back to you later and tell you all the details, right? Okay, so and I guess that is the end of our webinar. Again, thanks for joining. Hope that all the tips were really helpful for you, right? So bye, have a nice evening.